Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me again, Alistair McKenzie. Hello Alistair, how are you?
Hi, yeah, very good. Glad to be back. Got, I suppose there's been a fair bit happening since we were last here, so it's quite exciting to actually get to the point now, I suppose, where things are starting to happen. Pre-season is underway, and the World Cup's over. So I suppose the attention is now fully being focused towards the new season, and with a new shirt out and a few new signings and everything, it's starting to feel a bit more, a bit more real.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to catch up, we were saying before starting the show, right? Because in this week or so, a lot of things happened. We were talking about, in the last episode of our last podcast, we were talking about the Maglia bandiera and what happened. The Maglia bandiera is back, Alistair. What's your thought about that? Because I was a little bit concerned. I don't know what your reaction was to listen to a lot of Lazio fans saying, it's the same of 2 years ago. What a waste of time. Well, I have the one of 2 years ago. I don't need to buy a new one. While I thought, that's what we hope would be every year, first shirt. So, I was a little bit surprised of this type of reaction.
Yeah, well, my first reaction was that they must have been listening to Lazio Lounge, because it was a bit creepy that we'd been talking about that so much, and then 2 days later it comes out. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen at least, I don't think you'll always get some people who'll think that way, I suppose, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I do think the majority of Lazio fans seem to be delighted that it's been brought back. And the other thing is, it was such a good shirt that even if it is the same as the one from a couple of seasons ago, it's worth remembering that in that case it was a special edition, so it was only available for half a season, and it's such a good kit that it's worth, in my opinion, having at least for one full season. So I think it's brilliant that they brought it back for a full season as the main kit instead of just a special edition. And from the reaction I've seen, at least, I think everybody feels pretty strongly in the same way. I mean, it's great. It's not often, I suppose, that you see a kit release bring such kind of strong emotions one way or another. So it goes to show, I suppose, we talked about Macron and quite a lot last week, and it goes to show that they are at least aware of how fans feel, and it's a great start to the season, I suppose, when they feel like they've been listened to and the history is being observed as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Macron were listening to us last week and they said, yeah, okay, let's bring it back. The other thing is, well, there are two things I was discussing about. One is a lot of players of that Lazio are not with us anymore. So, for example, if you have Biglia shirt, Mauri shirt, Keita shirt, then, you need to get a new one because Biglia is playing for Milan and so on. So that's a good reason. And the other one is, for example, it's funny because the day they announced it, my biggest son dressed with the Maglia bandiera, and kids grow up so fast, and in 3 years now it's it's reaching his belly. It's he can't wear it anymore. So it's the perfect timing. I will have to buy a new one for him. So you I don't know you, but I'm a little bit fatter, so I don't fit anymore in that shirt. I have to buy a new size. And I think it's so great. It's cool to have it every year. I would love to have it. So I don't know. I was surprised. I think it's going to have a big success. And again, the funny thing was a lot of not Lazio fan were so happy about the shirt, saying, I'm a Juventus fan, but this shirt is so nice, I'm going to buy it. While on the other side, Lazio fan said, I have it of 2 years ago, I don't need it, which was astonishing.
Yeah, that's always a good sign, isn't it? I mean, I think when it goes to the wider community, not just the Lazio fans, and people are respecting it and appreciative of it, it goes to show that they've done a good job. I'm not as keen on the Europa League one, for example, but I think the home kit is the most important, really. So to get that right is great, and yeah, I think the goalkeeper one looks good as well. Very similar to the alternative one that came afterwards, the original release as well. So Yeah, it's been a good start, and very exciting. I mean, I don't know if it is really good news for you if it means you're going to have to go and buy all your children another another shirt, but I never got around to buying it last time because I was a poor student at the time and finishing a master's course and couldn't afford the £80 or whatever it was. So I'm delighted it's back because it's going to give me an opportunity to actually get hold of one again.
And this is the funny thing: if you buy it in UK, it costs less than in Italy.
Yeah, I know. Italy's kit prices are astonishing.
Are insane, really. And I was discussing this. I've been discussing this for years. The material is the same. It's not that in UK it's done worse. It's exactly the same. Only that in Italy it costs £10, something like that, more than in the rest of Europe. So, guys, if you are in UK, right, not England, UK, you can buy it from Macron and you will save some money. I have to say that even the Europe League is nice. It remembers a little bit the shirt of the Centenario that I loved. So, I think Macron does really good shirts, I have to be honest.
Yeah, they've been good so far. They've definitely got the fans on board. Pretty happy with it all.
I have to tell, the biggest problem at the moment is, okay, which player do I put? Do I put Milinkovic-Savic like I did last year? But
this is the thing. It's always such a risky game to actually buy one now before the transfer market closes. So maybe it's worth waiting a month and then seeing who's in our squad.
Yeah, and it looks like, it's not official, that Luis Alberto will change his number. He's turning to 10 now that it's free. So guys, if you're thinking about buying Luis Alberto, that I think it's a safe option. I don't think he's leaving. Well, wait a second, because if what I heard is true, he's switching to number 10, which makes sense, He's the trequartista, he wears the number 10.
Yeah, it would make sense. I suppose it's worth, at this point, moving on to the departing number 10, no?
Absolutely. Felipe Anderson. And this brings me to another discussion, because, and this is typical of Lazio fan, right? When Felipe Anderson was playing for Lazio this season, everybody say, a wasted talent, etc. Now he's leaving, and it looks like Messi's leaving Lazio. So you have to decide: or he's a wasted talent, or he was Messi. He can't be both, So that's a little what happens pretty much all the time with a lot of players leaving Lazio. Obviously, 5 years at Rome is, it's not easy. You feel that that player is attached to Lazio, so it's sad to see him go. But as I said on this podcast often, I thought this was the right season to sell him, and so I thought the price was amazing, was good. So even though I'm sorry to see a player leaving Lazio after 5 years, I think it made sense, and both Lazio and the player are happy, I think.
Yeah, I said something similar on Twitter after he went. I think it's just it's the right time for this to happen, and I think it was Rami Elgendi made a good point as well earlier in our comments, which was that it's quite nice to actually have a player leaving on good terms. If you think about how many high-profile players have left Lazio, De Vrij, Biglia, Keita in the last year, who've left with bad relationship with the fans, and it's not been a particularly comfortable arrangement. Whereas this time, I think it's in my opinion anyway, it's a deal that kind of suits everybody. Anderson getting a bit restless. He'd lost his place to Luis Alberto in the team. He's still as inconsistent as he was when he arrived, so that problem's not really been solved. We're getting a phenomenally high transfer value for him, which I'm not convinced we get if we had another season of him playing at the similar level than he did last season. So I do think it suits everyone, and it's nice, like Rami mentioned, to see him go. And put a big, very heartfelt message out to the fans and say that he'll always be a Lazio fan and really be appreciative of the time here. And it goes to show, I suppose, how rare that's been, that it came across as a bit of a surprise to me in a way, to see a big player leaving Lazio and being able to kind of send out these very positive messages afterwards, because we've just not really been used to that recently.
Well, to be honest, Felipe Anderson is a nice guy. He has shown it often. He's been there long, and he's been grateful to Lazio, because let's not remember that when Lazio bought him from Santos, he wasn't playing because he had discussion with his manager that was playing him left back, So he's been grateful. He's a nice guy, so he was thankful for what Lazio did. And, he wanted to leave because he wanted to play more. And Lazio simply gave him the chance, find a deal, and was able to sell him. So, yeah, I mean, here there's a big difference. Felipe Anderson is not only a player; he's a nice guy. While De Vrij show no. I don't want to be too harsh with him, but let's not forget that Lazio waited De Vrij 1 year when he was injured, and they waited for him, and he wasn't very grateful the year after, pretty much leaving without renewing his contract. While Felipe Anderson was a different player. Again, it tells for me a little bit a lot about the player, that after 1 year that he lost his starting job, has to leave instead of fight back to find his job. But I mean, we know Felipe Anderson, we know what type of player he is, so I wish him all the best. Maybe West Ham is the perfect team for him.
Yeah. I mean, that was also another point I made, was that although it's a great deal for Lazio, the amount of money, could end up being over 40 million euros for a player who's not in Inzaghi's starting 11, and that's great money. But at the same time, that's not to say that he's not gonna, prove in England that he's worth that value, because inflated transfer fees that there are in the Premier League already. On top of that, we all know that he is an explosive player. He's very skillful. He's got a lot of pace. He's got really all the attributes that a lot of players can succeed in England with. I don't think he's too dissimilar as a player either to Mo Salah, who obviously went to England last summer under the radar, not particularly high expectations, ended up being the best player in the entire division, more or less. So I'm not saying I expect him to replicate that kind of success, but it does go to show that players can surprise you when they move to different football cultures. And I think for Anderson, it's a good move for him. It's a good choice of league for him to go to. And yeah, like you said, wish him all the best and hope that he does do well there.
Yes, the other thing, to close my thoughts on Felipe Anderson, the fact that West Ham bought him and not Manchester United or Chelsea tells you a lot about the player, I think. Not a big club came to buy him because, his behavior, how he switch on and off during the match is something that is not what a big team is looking for. So, but he has his chance to prove him everybody's wrong in West Ham. I believe he's going to be a starter because I don't remember now the name of the number 10 that is injured of West Ham, the Argentinian player.
Zini.
Yeah, Lanzini. So he's going to be the starter there. He shouldn't be having problem. And, he has like 6 months to prove everybody wrong before Lanzini come back. So I wish him well.
Yeah. I suppose, it's... he's a club record signing, so there is going to be big expectations on his shoulders as well, and it'll be interesting to see how he copes with that. But the impression I do get from Anderson is that he kind of is a player who likes to be the centre of attention, to be the number one, and have that weight of expectation on his shoulders as being the club record signing for West Ham going into a new season. I think that might be something he actually thrives off, rather than crumbles under. I do think that if he's given, as long as Pellegrini's done his homework and knows the best way to use him, and that he thrives on being given confidence, he's such a confidence player. As long as his head's up, he's enjoying himself, he's smiling, and he feels wanted, then he can be a very, very dangerous player. So I do think it is a move that could suit him.
Yes, absolutely. Now the biggest problem is who will be the replacement for Felipe Anderson. I wish it would happen like last year when Lazio sold Biglia and in a couple of days they got Lucas Leiva. I thought, as this deal went on for a lot, I thought and hope that Iglitare had already ready the replacement of Felipe Anderson. We're gonna see in the next days, but at the moment nothing is official.
Yeah, I was thinking when I saw the Anderson move has been the quite drawn out, likewise with the Acerbi move, I suppose. So I don't think there's been much doubt in the Lazio camp that Anderson was on the way out for quite some time. And as a result of that, I did have a sneaky feeling that Tari might have something lined up in the way that he did with Lucas last summer. And it's not really turned out that way, but I suppose it is a lot harder to find a deal for a player in that position. That's one thing there. It's going to cost a lot more money, and generally players who play in the number 10 role at clubs are going to be I suppose clubs will be trying a lot harder to hold on to them. If you think about the players who have been linked to Lazio, a lot of them have very important roles at their clubs, so it's not going to be easy to get a deal done very quickly. But I do think now it is a priority. I mean, not only that, we still don't have the second striker that we need to be behind Immobile. Currently, as it is, we're heading into another season of Felipe Caicedo. So, although overall I think the transfer market's been pretty promising so far, you can't hide the fact that we are missing a big player in the number 10 role and a big player at centre forward, to say the least. It's interesting today to see Senad Lulic say, when asked about the market, that he's expecting more players to come in. So I think everyone is expecting it inside the camp as well as outside, which is a relief. And we will get these deals done. But now that Auronzo is underway, pre-season has started, and Inzaghi's already getting his tactical hat on, it's better that these deals get done as quickly as possible.
Yes, absolutely. And we were wishing that Inzaghi would have 99% of the team available at the beginning of Auronzo, but we knew that this was pretty much impossible. Now, the thing is that we said all year that Lazio had a budget of 40 million euros for this summer. And we have to say that with Acerbi, Berisha, Durmisi, Sprocati, and even with Proto that came free, but obviously you have to pay his salary, Lazio spent nearly that amount of money. We are talking about 40 million euros. So I think that everything stopped because Lazio wanted to sell Felipe Anderson, get those 38 million euros to add, and then sign other players. We've been talking about Wesley that Lazio had already on hand a couple of weeks ago, but the deal didn't go through. I expect now that Lazio sold Felipe Anderson, I believe that Lazio is going to be signing Wesley as soon as possible, and a replacement for Felipe Anderson again as soon as possible. This morning, Alice, there have been rumors about Gonzalo Nicolas Martinez from River Plate. Mm-hmm. So before an Argentinian radio said that his agent was in Rome, that Lazio was going to pay the buyout clause that is of 50 million euros around, and that the agent was already in Rome to talk about the contract. So pretty much done deal. Clarin.com, that is probably the number one newspaper in Argentina, was saying that 2 weeks ago Lazio was really strong on this player, then things got quiet, but after the Felipe Anderson transfer, Lazio was back again on him. So it looks like he could have been the replacement of Felipe Anderson. He looks to be very similar to Felipe. Big talent, left-footed. He can play in different position, left wing, trequartista, right wing. 25 years old. He's fast, he's talent. A little bit like Felipe Anderson, he tends to switch on and off during the matches, during the season. But probably at 25 years old is the perfect year to move to Italy. The problem is, this afternoon, his agent said, no, I'm in London, I'm not talking with Lazio.
I was wondering when you were going to get to this part.
Is it, in my experience, it wouldn't be the first time that the agent says something completely different from what he's doing. So, Lazio could still be talking to the player and so on. Is it real? Is it fake? I don't know. But, this morning it looks like he would be the replacement of Felipe Anderson. In the afternoon, things change. So
that's the mercato for you.
Yeah, one of the most funniest thing about this rumors was that at a certain point this morning, Giovinco pop out. And I don't see any way how Lazio signed Giovinco. Not a chance for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about the highest paid player in MLS, aren't we, as well? So, I mean, he wouldn't be a cheap deal. And given that Luis Alberto is still the number one player in that position in that squad, I don't know, I mean, it's hard to say what Lazio are going to go for here in terms of the profile of a Anderson replacement, because if it's a like for like and they're wanting to replace that quality with the same one, then you end up with two players, I suppose, being aware that they're not going to be playing every week. But I mean, that's good for the strength of the squad, but might make it a bit harder to actually convince a really big name player. I mean, a guy we've been linked with forever now is Papu Gomez, who also made some very interesting comments today. And I do get the impression that Inzaghi would like Gomez as an option. I do think he would fit so well into this team, but at his age, and I think the price is going to be a bit of a turn-off because Atalanta are going to be desperate to keep hold of him. But I mean, he has said that he's never hidden his ambition to play for big clubs, and and when he was asked about Lazio, he said, "You never know in football," which basically seems to be what footballers say when they're not wanting to close the door on the idea of a move. So whether or not that will amount to anything as well, who knows? But I think it's quite interesting, like I was saying, with the different profiles of players who are being linked to you. There's a few of these South American guys who would be a bit cheaper and would probably be happier to be a number two. And then you've got a few big names like Gomez and Giovinco who certainly wouldn't be happy to do that. So I don't know, what do you think is more likely for the club to go for?
Well, Acerbi, for me, it's unbelievable. It's not realistic. As you were saying, he's the most paid player in the MLS, and he said that he went there to get all that money. So I don't think, and he's enjoying it there. He's a sort of hero of his team. So I don't see him coming back for Lazio to a cheaper contract. So I don't believe it pop out. Even Robben, I don't know if you read about it. 34 years old, leaving Bayern Munich to Lazio. Again, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be happy to have Robben because I'm not discussing the talent. He's a great player, but how many matches did he miss in the last couple of years? He's injury prone. He's 34. He's not gonna come to Lazio to play as he was 5 years ago. He's gonna ask for a lot of money, and I don't think it's gonna be worthy. Honestly, knowing Lotito and Tare, especially Tare, I think he's going more for players like Pity Martinez, that is young and could explode more than well-known players that are 30 years old. I would wish he would find someone in between, let's say a Berisha, that is young but already has experience in Europe League, etc. So you can see that he's gonna improve, but he's already at a very good level, and more than Martinez. But this Martinez, this Argentinian guy, could be a big surprise and become the next big thing. So I believe it's going to be that type of players that's going to come. But it's important to sign them as soon as possible so they come to Auronzo and get a hold on Inzaghi way of working, what Inzaghi wants to do. Because, and this is a point that I believe is very important. One of the reasons why Cáceres, for example, for me, didn't play that much this season is because he came in January when everything was already settled and Inzaghi didn't have that much time to explain everything to him. I think Auronzo is very important for that part. And so the sooner they arrive, the better it is for them.
Yeah, and I think, you make a good point that is particularly with guys like Martinez or Luan, another guy from South America who's not played over here before, who's been mentioned. I think for them to make that transition, it's a huge change for them, personally, culturally. All of those changes are huge before you even get to the football. And Inzaghi obviously has a very particular blueprint of the way he likes his team to play. And I think it's one thing bringing in a guy like Papu Gomez. I think he's aware of the way Lazio plays in a similar system for Atalanta. I don't think it would take as long for someone like that to come into the squad and adapt to it. But like you say, if we are going to go for these lesser profile players, then the sooner the better. I think Martinez as well, I think you mentioned already that he has this release clause of 15 million euros, which really is nothing in today's market. And so that is that's a bonus for Lazio. It's something that makes it a lot less complicated than it would be if you're having to barter with a club. So I think these deals would be made possible if the interest was serious. But that does need to be taken into consideration. And you mentioned Cáceres, but I think there's all sorts of examples, not just with Lazio, but just over the years of players taking some time to settle in Italian football. I think Serie A is renowned among players as being a particularly difficult league to get to grips with if you've not played in it before. So, for guys coming over from South America, I think they have to make a decision on that very quickly. And if it is a situation like Luan, who has basically said that he would like to play for Lazio, or Gonzalez who has this release clause, then there's nothing stopping the club just making the move, but a decision needs to be made, I suppose.
One thing is the Argentinian league is some way similar to the Serie A. It's more fast than the Brazilian league. It's more tactical. The defender are more similar to the Serie A. They are more, careful, etc. So that's why often you see an Argentinian player who come from that league adapting sooner than a Brazilian, because it's completely different football from Brazil. So I believe that Martinez, especially because he's playing for River Plate, so he's aware about pressure, playing for a big club and so on. I think he would adapt earlier than, for example, a player coming from the Brazilian league. But still, he needs to move as soon as possible to Auronzo to understand better what Inzaghi wants. And one thing is, one of Clarín was saying, if I'm not wrong, that Lazio didn't want to pay the buyout clause, but was looking for a deal to save a little bit of money and pay less the player. But fans were really upset because, as we were saying, he's still young and he's become one of the leader of River Plate. So selling him at this age made the fans very upset. So we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just to finish that point. I mean, Felipe Anderson, who we just talked about, I suppose is a good example of that when you talk about Brazilian players. Anyway, I mean, he didn't adapt, didn't make an impact in his first season at the club. So that does go to show that there is a fairly recent precedent of that happening, and that's talking about a guy who's won the Copa Libertadores, who was playing in high pressure situations in his own country, but it's a completely different set of circumstances that you're up against once you move.
Yes, absolutely. Ramel Gandhi asked us something like 100 questions. I think we replied to a couple of them already, but one is interesting. Does any of Filippini, Cataldi, Lombardi, Minal and Rossi, who were called up to Auronzo, have a chance of staying this season with Lazio? Well, we still don't know for sure, but unfortunately there have been some rumors of Cataldi linked to Frosinone, so we don't know. But all these players have played with Simone Inzaghi. I think, to be honest, and maybe I'm surprising someone, Rossi is the one who has less chance of staying, because at the moment we know that Lukaku hasn't been called for the Auronzo, so we know that he's not 100% fit. So maybe that's part of the reason. But as well, we know that Lazio is not very happy with him. So at the moment, on the left side, there are not many options. So Filippini could fight for a place there. Same thing for Lombardi on the right. He spoke yesterday to the Lazio style, saying, I've been playing 1 year in the 3-5-2 on the right wing, so I think I'm ready to do it, and I hope I can do it with Lazio. And Cataldi and Minala, especially if the Vice Leva doesn't arrive, have a chance to fight for that spot. So I think except Rossi, they all have a chance to stay.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot as well on Auronzo. I mean, I think these guys, the fact they've been taken to Auronzo is a signal that they are being considered to be a part of the squad next season. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered taking them. So that's already a big kind of boost for them, I suppose, that they're going to be given a chance to prove what they can do. I mean, we talked already last week about how important pre-season can be, just to take your chances and do what you can. I think the points you're making as well about the positions, that's a big part of it too. You made a good case last week about Filippini. I think the fact that he's a left-footed, left-sided defender, which is a bit of a rarity in our squad at the moment, and with Radu a year older, that puts him in a good position. And I wouldn't be surprised actually to see Filippini break into the first team this season if he can convince Inzaghi in the next month that he's capable of playing at that level. And Lombardi likewise. I mean, that's a position that we need more strength in. It doesn't seem like we're really putting any feelers out in the market to strengthen up on the right hand side. So he's in a decent position. And I think it is just, like you say, it's a bit harder for Cataldi and Minella because there's so much competition in that midfield. And Rossi, you've just mentioned as well. So, I don't know, I mean, Filippini is, for me, out of that group of players, maybe the most interesting one to track during this pre-season, in terms of how much Inzaghi's willing to use him or to kind of blood him as a natural successor or stand-in for Radu, because it doesn't seem like, who knows what will happen with Wallace and Bastos. They might still be around next season, but it would be nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not sure Filippini can play in the position of Radu. Maybe in the Lukaku Lulic position. He can play even there. That could be an option. Let's not forget that 3 years ago, when he left the Primavera, he was, if I'm not wrong, the captain of that Primavera. He was very close to stay with Lazio instead of going on loan. Inzaghi loved him. No, at that time was Pioli, I think, loved him. So I think he was really talented. He wasn't very lucky in his loan. He didn't have that much chances to prove himself. But, he has his chance now, and especially now that there are not many options there at the moment, he can really take his chances. One thing I wanted to point out,
Alistair, is that there is no Economidis in the Auronzo this year.
Mm.
After he played really well in Australia, so I was thinking after he did so well there, I thought maybe Inzaghi wanted to see him again.
Yeah, we've just got so many players. I think that's what it comes down to is that think about Tinkara as well, who's already been sent out in another loan. There's so many players on the books of this Lazio squad that Economidis, I suppose, might suffer a bit from the fact that he's a winger. So there's no real obvious place for him in this squad, and maybe Inzaghi's just looked at it and thought that with the options he's already got, there's no real space to try and bring a player along like that. But you do wonder after a certain point how constructive it really is to continue to send players out on loan year after year and hoping for the best. Economidis made a pretty good impression last summer at Auronzo and still hasn't really made any impact in the first team. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a huge surprise because for me it just comes down to how many players they've got in the books, and if you looked at the squad, I suppose they must have had a maximum amount of players they wanted to bring. I suppose it becomes harder to point to any player on that list and say that he deserves to be there more than they do.
Not a big surprise. Morrison as well is not there.
No.
I know you're shocked.
Absolutely appalled.
Anyway, we've been talking a lot about how well Lazio Primavera did in the past, not last year, but in the past. And at the end, you see all those players coming from Primavera and how many really played in the first team. The numbers are not that much. So it's a little bit surprising. And you see all these youngsters going on loan every year. And every year they find not that much space. So test them in Auronzo could be a very good option. Let's not forget that this season you have to have 4 coming from your academy and 4 coming from Italy. So this could change a little bit things, I believe, for those youngsters.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose as well it's a conveyor belt that's worked well for Lazio in recent years, particularly when Inzaghi was in charge. So that's a part of the club that really needs to improve big time next season, because I think we were all surprised and a bit shocked that they got relegated pretty comfortably last year. So if you're looking to, as a young player, to try and break into the first team, that's not the way you're going to do it. And I don't know, I mean, surely these new rules, the squad registration, that must give a lot of confidence to young players that they might get those opportunities. So we want to see more people taking them. Because like you say, the numbers haven't been increasing in the way that they were not so long ago.
Yep. To reply again to Rami Algendi, well, the future of Lukaku, Kishna, Vargic, Germoni, Rava and Perea, who hasn't been called to Auronzo, well, the hope for them is they find a team this summer. Otherwise, they will be training like Marchetti and Djordjevic have last year. Lukaku is linked to a lot of Premier League clubs, so hopefully he finds something. Kishna, I believe he's going to go on loan again in Netherlands. There have been some team interested in him. Vargic, I don't have any idea. I believe Germoni have already a sort of deal with a Serie B club. And I was thinking that Ravel would have stayed in Mexico. Instead, it didn't go well. And Perea, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why Lazio doesn't give another chance to Perea. But, I'm not there. I don't know how he's performing in training. Maybe he's not doing well, so... But yeah, we're gonna have news about them in the coming month. I think now top priority for Iglitare is not sell those players, but find the Vice Immobile and find the Vice Luis Alberto. And I don't know, maybe decide if Cataldi and Minala can play instead of of Lucas Leiva.
That is a lot of players, though. If you think about all those you've just reeled off from Rami, I mean, it is crazy that there's that many players who can't even get into a training squad before a season. And with the window finishing sooner as well, I mean, it would just be such a crying shame, and it is such a waste to have players like Djordjevic and Marchetti who are members of the first team officially and being paid good wages by the club and not making any contribution whatsoever. So I think it is a priority, to get rid of these guys. I mean, the obvious one is Lukaku, and who the fact that he's been left out of the squad suggests that he's definitely leaving the club one way or another, and that it shouldn't be too hard for Lazio to find a buyer for Lukaku. So that's a player who's played at a good level, got a lot of game time for Lazio last season, and can command a decent transfer fee. So I would say that getting a good deal for a player like him is almost as important as strengthening the squad with new signings, because we don't want to have a situation where Lukaku's sitting in the reserves being paid a good wage and not playing any football.
Yes, it's true. One thing important that we don't have to forget is that, unfortunately, the problem is that now you have a list of only 25 players. So that's the problem. 3 years ago, you could have signed how many players you wanted and have it in the team. Now you only have this 25, so this complicated a little bit things. And the other is, a lot of teams have players that doesn't fit. There's even the situation of Patrick, who has been called to Auronzo but is still not there. So I don't know what's going on with the player. But it's just another issue of Lazio.
Yeah, I mean, but it has been for a while. I mean, it's not a new problem, is it, to have too many players, to have this bloated squad? And I know a lot of teams have similar issues, so it's not just a Lazio problem. But if you're talking about a club president like Claudio Lotito, who's so famously tight with money and taking complete control of almost every aspect of the club to make sure that it's not losing money stupidly, it seems like such an obvious way of making savings or of being able to contribute to the overall wage budget of the team is to actually get rid of team players who have been regarded by the coaching staff as surplus to requirements. So yeah, it would be a shame to have all these guys sitting there once the season starts.
Yeah, but it's not easy, it's not easy to place players who haven't played that much. It's not easy to place them, someone like Mauricio, for example, or Economidis, I don't know where you can place them easily. Perce, who is another player, looks like he signed for Cyprus team, so he's out. We're gonna see what happens with the others, but I think the priority for the moment for Lazio is filling those gaps. We heard Wallace talking the first day of Auronzo, saying that his object this season is to find more space with Lazio. So I don't know if he wants to leave, as rumors were in the beginning. Again, he's another player that could find some space somewhere else, some teams interested, but then you'll need to replace him. So I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to watch, but the next two are going to be vital this week for Lazio in different ways.
Yeah. We finally get some games as well, kind of.
Yeah. They're usually very important because you start understanding what Inzaghi want to try and who's looking, who could be the surprise of the season. Let's not forget that last year, this time, Luis Alberto was playing instead of Biglia, and we remember that last summer Luis Alberto was not considered a starter at all. He was a player we will think who would leave Lazio this summer. So, if you see Filippini starting, then you start to realize that maybe Inzaghi is seeing something out of him and is interested in him. Same thing on Cataldi and so on. So it's going to be important. And let's not forget Pedro Neto and Bruno Jordao that are there training with Inzaghi since the beginning. They could be the biggest surprise of the season.
Well, another one that interests me as well is Sprocati because, I think his signing took a lot of people off guard, was a bit, came out of nowhere really. And I suppose there were the suggestions or at least assumptions that he wasn't really going to play much of a part despite having signed. But, he's been taken to Auronzo, he's lined up. Just looking at the kind of training reports from today, it looks like he's going to be used in a number 10 position as well. So I remember reading an interview a couple of days ago, and it was one of the Lazio guys who was at Salernitana with him last season. I think it was Alessandro Rossi, but I can't actually remember whose interview it was. But one of his teammates from last season, and they were, very complimentary, very impressed with him, and tipping him to make an impact in the Lazio first team this season. So, I can't really make any sort of judgment on him as a player because I've not really spent any time watching Salernitana, and it's a surprising signing. But we've talked about hunger before. It's an incredible opportunity for him to make this step up, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he can make any sort of impact whatsoever. He might just end up being another Di Gennaro, but who knows?
Yes, absolutely. Even because let's not forget that now without Felipe Anderson, he has a lot of time to play because Luis Alberto is recovering. Now today was probably the first day he did part of the training with the rest of the team, while yesterday he did pretty much all the training alone. So, when Inzaghi tried the starting team, Sprocati is going to have a lot of time to play because Luis Alberto is not there. There's not a replacement for him. So we're going to see even if Inzaghi start changing a little things, instead of going all the time with the 3-5-2, maybe switching to the 3-4-1-2 or other different tactics. That could be interesting. We said it often. Lazio has the players to change things. So we're going to see. Today, for example, there have been two teams. One that had Adamonis, defense with Wallace, Acerbi, Radu, midfield with Marusic, Minala, Murgia, Jordao, Durmisi, and in front Sporcati and Caseido. The other one who had Guerrieri, Basta, Felipe Luis, Bastos. Midfield with Lombardi, Parolo, Leiva, Beriscia, Filippini, and attack with Immobile, Rossi. So it looks like it's still a 3-5-2, but one was a 3-5-1-1 with Sprocati behind Caseido, the other one more 3-5-2. So we're going to see. But, as I was saying, Jordao, Sprocati, Filippini have really the chance to impress Inzaghi in these days.
Yeah, although, reading out those teams there, it does make you realise what position we're in terms of just going back to the transfer talk and the importance of bringing in players. That is, a big difference over what the team's ambitions for a season is. If you're talking about your second choice options in that front two being Sprocati behind Caicedo, versus Felipe Anderson and whoever, I think it does go to show that I think we know what to expect from Caicedo by now. We don't know what to expect from Sprocati, but it's unlikely to be a similar level that Anderson was performing at. So, I think I just don't want to have another season where so much is asked of Ciro because, the guy, everything he's done has been superhuman really for Lazio so far, but I just can't imagine that he's capable of doing the season he's just had all over again.
Yes, and Inzaghi tried even these other two teams, Guerrieri, Basta, Luis Felipe Bastos, Lombardi, Parolo, Leiva, Beriscia, so Beriscia playing in the center, Lulic, Neto Immobile, who should be interesting to see how Neto played. Against Strakosha, Wallace, Acerbi, Radu, Marusic, Murgia, Di Gennaro, Cataldi, Durmisi, Sprocati again in Caseido. So, it's good to see Minala and Cataldi playing, because yesterday they didn't play in the friendly match to close the training yesterday, and I was a little bit scared about that, that Inzaghi already made up his mind. I think that both Minala and Cataldi can be useful and need that time to show it,
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it'll be. Well, I mean, we've already spoken at length about Cataldi this summer, so I hope that he does go on to get his opportunity. Same with Minella. I mean, he's been talked about for the last couple of years as being one of the more promising players in the youth system, and having now had some time in senior football, this is the kind of opportunity that he's been waiting to get. So it's just such a competitive midfield. It can't be easy for a player of that caliber or that profile to break into this Lazio midfield, particularly when you see the likes of Berisha coming in as reinforcement. So I do think that the midfield is, I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. The right side could still do with a bit of strengthening, but it's looking in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think Tare did a great job in improving the midfield, and I think probably Inzaghi and Tare made this consideration that in the second half of the season we were lacking of replacement in midfield. When Parolo went down, Leva was a little bit tired. We didn't have those players. Probably even Felipe Anderson, who had more time to play, didn't perform as expected. So maybe you need more players, and that's why you bought Durmisi and Berisha. Again, I think, as you were saying, we need someone on the right if Lombardi doesn't perform extremely well. I would love to have even someone in defense. We said about Wallace. I really like to see Bastos make a step forward, improving again. But if he doesn't, maybe if Lazio want to compete for the Champions League, I think maybe another good defender should be a nice option.
Yeah, I've said that from the very start of the market. It's just that it doesn't seem to be a priority, and we're not exactly being linked to a lot of defenders. It doesn't seem to be the kind of player that we're near the top of the list, really, in requirements at the moment. But yeah, it is at the moment pretty much a straight swap of De Vrij out and Acerbi in, and as we already discussed last week, that's not really an improvement. That's not a strengthening of the defence. I think Acerbi's an adequate replacement, but it's not to say that that's going to take us up a level from just missing out in the Champions League to getting into the Champions League. And considering the problems this team had defensively last season, it seems like an obvious part of the team to be looking at. I mean, Lazio were incredibly entertaining to watch last season, but we mustn't forget the problems we have had defensively, the mental blackouts, the sheer number of goals conceded across all three competitions. It was a lot. It was the most gaping obvious problem with this team, really. So if Inzaghi manages to change that with the same group of players, having lost De Vrij, who's the kind of leader of that defence, I'd be amazed. I'm not saying bringing in one new player is going to sort all of those problems out, absolutely not, but I do think that is something, if we're going to take the next step, that's going to have to be very much high on the list of priorities for Inzaghi to work out.
Yes, I don't remember who said it. Lulic in the press conference said we have to find a little bit more balance. If you attack too much, then you have to be you're going to allow other team to have more chances. So we have to be more balanced, and we're working on that. We said about
defenders. One thing important is that, as we said, not a lot of journalists know what Tare is really doing. So that's why you get incredible rumors like Robben or things like Giovinco that I don't think are really linked to Lazio. So we don't know if Tare in the meantime already have signed the replacement of Felipe Anderson or another defender. We're going to find out only at the end of the transfer market. But I believe Tare knows what Lazio need, and this season he has the money to do it. So, crossing fingers, everything. Lotito and Tare will do everything they can to improve this team.
Yeah, no doubt. I suppose it's just the one thing that's changed now is the timing and the fact that there's less time for him to get these moves done. So, yeah, it's a new challenge for him. It's a completely new challenge, really, as a transfer market on the whole for Tare, because not only has he got less time to get his deals done, but he's been given a bigger budget than he usually has to get these deals done. There's high-profile players leaving the club. There's the Milinkovic-Savic question, and there's a lot of different positions that need filled. And even though it is a pretty big budget from Lazio standards anyway, it's asking a lot to fill in all these positions with the money he's got. So, it's a challenging market, and I think so far he's done a good job. I think I'm been pretty happy with the business that's been done so far, but we can only really judge that properly once the market closes.
Yes, we're gonna see what happens. As I was saying, these next 2 weeks are really important on the field, because Inzaghi is gonna try the new Lazio and try a lot of players that didn't have that much chances last year, and off the field with Tare signing the last players for Lazio that can make a big improvement for the team. We all believe that. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen in the next week. And finally, the first friendly are gonna come. As we were saying, it should be easy friendly, but it's always important to see those players performing for the first time on the pitch, right, Alistair?
Yeah, and I hear that Auronzo have a pretty strong team this year. So, it's always nice to I suppose see the players in the new kits and get more of an idea of selection-wise what Inzaghi's thinking. We've not really had any suggestions for a very long time now that he's going to be tactically flexible. So it will be interesting, especially, I suppose, against such weak opposition, to see if that's something that he has a look at or not.
Yeah. Again, it would have been nice to have a press conference with Simone Inzaghi like other teams did it. Inter started the training and Spalletti spoke. Roma had it, and all the big teams having, and Lazio doesn't. So that's a shame. But eventually Inzaghi will talk, so we're gonna know more things about his plan of the season. It would be really interesting even to know what's happening with Patrick and the other type of players. Alistair, I think we can close it here. I don't know if you have a stats this week to show up.
No, maybe my stat is that this is the third week in a row that I don't have any stats.
Didn't Lazio page or Lazio stat, I don't remember, tweet us something about season 2017-18 assists for minute played in the season. Ronaldo 1 every 4.95 minutes. Sprocati 1 every 3.52 minutes.
Brilliant.
Nice stat.
And we have a big news, right? We are finally on Spotify. So
yes.
if you are Spotify, if you're a member of Spotify, you can now search for Lazio Lounge under podcast, and you will find a lovely podcast there. So we are pretty much everywhere now, Alistair. You have no excuse to avoid us. We are on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, really everywhere where you usually listen to a podcast. We are there now. So, if you have friends that like Serie A and maybe a Lazio fan, go and tell them about us. And now you can listen pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, it's great news. I mean, great news for me as well. Actually, Spotify's my platform of choice, so I was quite happy to see it pop up.
Did you subscribe?
Yeah, don't worry. I'm doing my.
Good.
We're slowly taking over the internet. Quite
Good.
slowly, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you again, Alistair, for joining me, and we're going to talk again this week, maybe with other bigger news.
Yes, let's hope so.
Well, we have to, right? Because the summer transfer is nearly ending, and Lazio still need to find at least another couple of players. Thank you again, everybody, for listening us, and remember that you can become membership on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. And for tonight, thank you very much for listening, and we're going to talk again next week. Bye, everybody.